From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin once again with the hostage crisis. It is still a crisis, but for now at least the emphasis is on diplomacy, not the immediate threat of death. Today, the new president of Iran, Hashemi Rafsanjani, offered to help free the hostages in Lebanon. It is the most direct offer of cooperation between Iran and the United States in a decade. An encouraging offer, said President Bush, and one the U.S. should explore to the fullest. ABC's Jerry King monitored today's events in Iran.
President Rafsanjani used the regular Friday prayer service to speak directly to President Bush. I tell the White House, he said, the freeing of the hostages has solutions. Come, let us approach the problem reasonably. We, too, will help solve the problems there. All Rafsanjani asked for publicly was that the U.S. pressure Israel to free Sheikh Obaid. Rafsanjani could hardly have made that offer without the agreement of Iran's hardliners. And ABC News has learned of a meeting today in Tehran that did set other conditions. It involved the pragmatic Rafsanjani and Iran's spiritual leader, Ali Khamenei, plus the hardliners like Ahmed Khomeini, the son of the late Ayatollah, and the interior minister. Our source indicates they agreed on a set of demands: that the U.S. release Iran's assets frozen after the seizure of the embassy, that it lift the trade and arms embargoes, that it not interfere in Iran's internal affairs, and not recognize the Lebanese Christian government of General Michel Aoun. That may have been to satisfy the Lebanese Muslim kidnappers, who last night granted a stay of execution to Joseph Cicippio. In southern Lebanon today, the parents of Israel's hostage, Sheikh Obaid, pleaded for the release of their son. Said his mother, "I am paralyzed and cannot walk. Please send my son home." And in Beirut, Joseph Cicippio's wife expressed a similar hope.
I wish and deeply hope that all the hostages, without any exception, will be freed soon.
Any package deal for the hostages would have to have something in it for Syrian leaders here in Damascus. Their influence comes largely from the 35,000 troops they have stationed in Lebanon. So far, the Syrians are not talking about what role they would play. Jerry King, ABC News, Damascus.
Well, once again, as it was when Americans were held hostage in Iran 10 years ago, this question of individual Americans in trouble in the Middle East has overshadowed a lot of other things on the presidential agenda. ABC's Britt Humans at the White House.
After a meeting with Republican senators on another issue, the president took questions and was immediately asked to react to the offer by Iranian President Rafsanjani of help in freeing U.S. hostages.
I'm pleased about that. I don't know the total role of any individual country in that area in all of this, but when you see a statement that offers hope for the return of our hostages, I want to explore it to the fullest.
The administration may want to explore it, but the president said nothing about the captors' latest demands. And as was made clear at the State Department today, U.S. dealings with Iran are still through other countries, hardly in a posture for direct negotiation.
You can assume that if someone has delivered a message for us, there has been, in some instances, answers back to those messages, of course.
Indeed, the president was careful not to raise expectations about what might come of all this.
I'm encouraged, but I don't want to get the hopes of the hostages' loved ones up once again, to have those hopes dashed. This is a brutal process.
The president said the hostages and their families were foremost in his mind, including Joseph Cicippio, although he was captured after staying in Beirut despite U.S. government warnings to leave.
He's an American, and he is entitled to the concern of the president and every one of these senators and everybody in our administration. And he's got a great, big, wonderful family up there that are eating their hearts out in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and we're very much concerned about it.
The president has repeatedly expressed anguish about the hostages and their families this week, but his spokesman insisted today U.S. policy is not being hostage-driven. It was, after all, distress over hostages and their families that led Ronald Reagan into the ill-fated sale of arms to Iran. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
Well, whatever indirect negotiations may be going on, what the Israelis do continues to be an essential consideration. ABC's Don Kladstrup is in Tel Aviv.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State John Kelly met with Defense Minister Itzhak Rabin and, according to a senior military source, re-emphasized that although the U.S. refuses to deal with the terrorists, it won't object if Israel does.
We have one policy on the matter of hostages, and Israel has a differing one. We recognize their right to have a different policy.
If that sounds familiar, it is. When TWA Flight 847 was hijacked to Beirut 4 years ago, it was Israel which indirectly dealt with the terrorists, not the United States. Though the U.S. never formally asked, Israel freed about 760 Shiite prisoners in exchange for the plane's passengers. Can something similar happen again? Israeli officials say they are optimistic. They are now studying the latest message from the hostage takers. At a meeting with Canadian Jews, Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir said he was hopeful that negotiations for the release of hostages may be near.
We are waiting for proposals, and we hope we will get some proposals, and that will be the end of all these crises.
Israel's original offer is still on the table, to exchange some 300 Shiite prisoners, including Sheikh Obeid, for Israeli prisoners and Western hostages in Lebanon. Whether Israel is also willing to free some of the Palestinians it is holding, as the terrorists are demanding, is unclear. What does seem clear is that a partial deal only for Israeli prisoners is for now out of the question. According to one high official here, an exchange that does not involve Western hostages is impossible. Israel, he said, would look terrible. Don Cladstrup, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Israel does not look too good to many Americans. An ABC News Washington Post poll taken over the last 2 days shows considerable unhappiness in this country with Israel's decision to kidnap Sheikh Obeid. 51% of those we asked disapproved of the kidnapping. And in a related question, only 29% rated Israel as a reliable ally. That is down from 51% in April.